Wait
this
till it's
week.
live. Hey, what's going on, people?
This is Chris, and welcome to the Expedition Sim live
Chris
show.
is he's still working on when the actual camera turns on or whatever. So don't never mind him.
Well, it said live on my screen.
Okay, sorry, then not mine. So yeah, welcome. Today is April 22nd, aka Earth Day, 2016. So yeah, do your recycle, reuse, all that good stuff. Chris, what you got going on this week?
Planning on a birthday party for a 5-year-old, so that's always fun. I think it's going to be a tiki themed, or at least a hula dancing themed, given that we just came back from Hawaii and had some fun videos of my daughter learning the hula from local dancers there. So she now wants all of her little friends to learn it, which means I now have to learn the hula to teach her.
Please post a video on our YouTube page of you hula dancing. I want to see that.
Yeah, I'll make sure to put on the grass skirt and coconut bra too.
Of course. I thought that's what guys wear when they do that.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I'm going to be doing the Space Apps Challenge tomorrow and Sunday. And tomorrow's also going to be the Makers Fair in Burlington, North Carolina. So I'll be covering that stuff, probably posting on Sunday night or Monday, something like that. So looking forward to that.
How's your Nerf robot coming along?
It got kind of put on hold. It's like maybe like halfway done. Like the chassis and stuff is done, but had to put the Nerf part on hold because I'm working on another project. So maybe in a couple weeks, get the Nerf bot going.
Woohoo!
Yep.
Yeah, just make sure you're not driving around me. I'm, especially when we go to Arizona in a few weeks. For those who don't know, we will actually be attending the Intel Science and Engineering Fair. That'll be happening this year in Phoenix, Arizona. This is actually the final ISEF, with Intel being the lead sponsor of it. And we will be on site checking out some of the amazing exhibits that many of these high schoolers are coming up with, and their ideas. And I know last year's winner was using machine learning and artificial intelligence to detect cancer cells. So it's some really big thinkers from some really small people right now. So looking forward to seeing that. Just don't drive that Nerf gun around and be shooting me while we're interviewing people.
Okay. I promise. All right. So what do we got for our science story?
Well, this has actually been a week of earth-shaking developments. In the past 2 or a week and a half, we've seen a number of earthquakes happening around the world. We've seen Japan, we've seen Ecuador, as well as the new volcanic eruptions coming out of the Mexican volcano. I can never pronounce its name, the Patacadol or something like that. I know I'm going to butcher that Aztec name. But this week, actually, in Science Magazine, a new article points to geologic events and volcano events or eruptions actually contributing to major greenhouse emissions, and that there's a long-term cycle of greenhouse gases building up. When you see years of specifically the volcanoes that are on the edges of tectonic plates where there are earthquakes, when they are erupting more frequently than other. And currently we have 16 of such volcanoes currently erupting. There are 16 active eruptions, as well as 6 recently in the past few months, as reported by the U.S. Geological Survey and the International Volcanology Society. And so, it's interesting to see the correlation. Even this year, the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration each month continues to kind of revise their statements that this is the hottest year on record, or this is the hottest month or period of record air temperatures globally. My question is, Andrew, do you think that besides the greenhouse gases that we are making, of course, man-made CO2 emissions are different than geologic, but do you think that we might be in one of those periods of natural warming from some of these seismic events?
I would leave that to the experts to determine, but I guess if they say so, then I'm with them. Yeah, I don't know if we're in a cycle like that. I'm not qualified to answer that question, but um, let's see, what can I say about the subject? Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting how uh, you know, volcanoes dump tons of chemicals and stuff into the air, and they can definitely affect uh, the Earth quite drastically. Not only greenhouse gases, but depending on the size of the volcano, if it blows enough ash into the sky, it can block out the sun for a certain, area of the Earth, and then you could have, uh, depending on how long it could stay up there, you could have like stuff get affected, like plants dying or whatever, because they're not getting sun. Um, but yeah, I don't know about if we're in one of those cycles.
Well, not to mention, all the stuff, particulates in the air contribute to a lot of other things. I mean, if you think the town of Puebla, which is outside of where the volcano is currently erupting in Mexico, not only is the town getting dumped with plumes of ash that are continuing to fall on it, but you have, health problems that are associated with breathing in the toxic ash for humans. But if you think about it, millions of years ago, with dinosaurs and other animals, what the type of ash plumes would do to other species, and it's not just the warming of the crust. I mean, there's a lot of geologic activity going on right now, or seismic activity going on. There's a lot of warming that's happening because of man-made CO2 emissions. And this is kind of like may just be in just another cycle where we're seeing the Earth itself restore CO2 levels, heat levels, temperature levels to a specific level that, it naturally would, or you see a period. Actually, they say that the downside of this is actually a period of inactivity, where you actually have rapid cooling, and not necessarily another ice age, but definitely something where we see more restoration of the CO2 levels going back to acceptable levels, and the Earth kind of cooling off. So it becoming more cyclical. And sometimes they say that these cycles can last, 10 to 20 years. So it's interesting. I just look at it and say, wow, it's amazing to see how the Earth itself can contribute to some of the CO2 problems that we have today. But definitely, I mean, it's something. This is Earth Day. This is a day that we have to be conscious of, our own CO2 emissions, our own impact, our own greenhouse and carbon footprint that we're putting out there. So, just something for us to consider as well as we look at our impact on the Earth as well as the Earth's natural cycles.
Well said. And speaking of looking at the Earth, let's talk about our new technology story for the week, which is looking, I guess, down to the Earth from Hubble Space Telescope. So this year is the 26th anniversary of the Hubble Space Telescope, named after Edwin Hubble, famous astronomer. And for its anniversary, NASA took a few images of a known object called the Hubble Nebula, first discovered by William Herschel, another famous astronomer. And they released that. It's online. You can go on NASA's website or other websites and look at that. It's really cool. You've seen it, but for those who haven't seen it, it's like looks like a big bubble, big blue bubble. And it's got a star in the middle. That's basically what the star is pushing out all this stellar wind, and it's knocking into this gas, and it's creating that surface area of the bubble. So NASA said the bubble is about 7 light years across, and that's pretty freaking big. For those who don't know, that's pretty big for a nebula. I mean, not a nebula, but for an object. Think about it. They said the star that's in the middle is like 45 times more dense than our sun, and yeah, there's a lot of depending on the colors that are coming off of the image, you can kind of tell like what elements are in there. So like blue would be oxygen and so forth. And so, Chris, I guess my question for you is, they're talking about retiring Hubble, and they might have, or they have other projects in the works. What do you think about what Hubble has done for us so far, and was it worth it?
Well, it's been amazing to see some of the things that Hubble has been able to discover for us. I mean, the first galaxies beyond our system. I think recently there was a story about there's an actual galaxy orbiting our galaxy or something along those lines that was detected by Hubble. Our first views of planets that came from other solar systems, and just amazing. The technology that went into imaging, gaseous nebulas or distant stars, distant galaxies. It's funny to think about that. One small area. If you took a thumbnail of area of sky, and Hubble looks deep into that space, beyond what we can see here on Earth. Looking at, you take a small little square maybe that big of what we can see, and Hubble's been able to discover thousands upon thousands of new things far beyond what the human eye could see. It's just kind of outstanding. I think that I remember 26 years ago when we launched Hubble. It was something that, as an 8-year-old kid, I sat there and said, wow, we just sent something up into space. And a few years later, we started getting these just amazing images back from Hubble that made me go, wow, that's something I would love to explore. And it first kind of gave me my passion for space and space exploration, besides, the sci-fi stuff that was on TV. So I think it's been great for empowering imagination, and I'd love to see what comes out next. If Hubble's end of life, actually, I know Hubble at one point had problems with a mirror, or it was one of the most costly things to put up into space, and then it was broken when it was first put up there, and they had to fix it. So it hasn't been without its troubles, and just about any other technology that's gone up in space hasn't been without its troubles either. So I'm interested to see what they come up with and new missions that could be tasked. If Hubble's at end of life, what can we, how much longer can we get some good use out of it?
Right. Yeah, they got the James Webb Space Telescope replacing Hubble, I think this year. So that one's, probably going to be better at everything. But yeah, Hubble definitely led the way and let us know sort of, what's out there and, all the structures of the universe. And yeah, I think, even though it costs a lot of money, I think the information they gave us is priceless. I mean, it mapped the universe. Like, sorry, that costs money. So sucks, but we learned, about some of the things that we did wrong, I guess, like the mirror and that sort of thing. So like they had to put, I think they call it, like they had to give Hubble glasses or whatever. They didn't really replace anything. They added stuff to it. So it's like getting a pair of glasses. But yeah, so that's sort of embarrassing. But hey, you live and you learn. And hopefully the James Webb Space Telescope doesn't have any hiccups like that. And can't wait for those images because, they've replaced, I think, the cameras in Hubble since it launched. But I mean, still, like, I think the cameras that are in there, at least 10 years old by now. So
yeah,
just having
and a lot of the images are composite images of multiple layers that are put on top of each other. You have your one layer that's looking at hydrogen atoms, another layer that's looking at oxygen atoms, or all the different types of atomic reflection that it's getting, and so being able to have these composites of layer upon layer upon layer that are just making these absolutely gorgeous images. For them to create that technology several years ago, I mean, over 20 years ago, because it took them a number of years to build. For them to look at it in that sense, I think it's just outstanding of what they've done, and then what technologies we now have available to us. So, how much better can the images get? How much crisper? How much faster can we see things?
Right. Yeah, a lot of people don't know that when sometimes when astronomers release these images or NASA, they are composite images, and so it might look like really gorgeous or whatever, but it's not always in visible light. That's not all the information's there. Is not visible to the human eye. Some of it's like infrared or X-ray, and they add it to it because you know infrared lets you see into a nebula, and X-ray will let you see some of the stuff that is so bright that it doesn't. It's way above the wavelength of visible light. So yeah, but yeah, all combined together looks awesome. So we're gonna move on to our engineering story. Speaking of Hubble, which was an amazing engineering story, is the Solar Impulse 2 project and aircraft that is in the air right now. And if you go to their website, or YouTube, you can actually see them live. They have a camera inside. So Solar Impulse was a project started by a couple guys. I think they're both Swiss, and basically they started it just to sort of fly a solar aircraft, but then they got the idea of circumnavigating the Earth to do that in a solar powered plane. And it's all solar powered. It's not, it doesn't have any gas backup or anything like that, just batteries. And so they launched, I think it was April 2015 from Abu Dhabi, and the plan was to land in August, back in Abu Dhabi. And they're pretty much on track until something went wrong with their batteries. They had some like thermal issues, and they had to land about 9 months ago, in Hawaii. I guess that's, hey, if you're gonna, take a 9-month vacation, actually, I don't know if they're on vacation, but I mean, hey, what better place to land than Hawaii? So they've been there, and they've been trying to fix their aircraft, and they just got it fixed, and they took off yesterday, leaving from Hawaii, and they will be landing in Mountain View, California, Saturday night, Sunday morning, depending on the weather. And so, they'll have a few more stops until they get back to Abu Dhabi. So, yeah, I think that's pretty cool. It'll be the first time someone's ever circumnavigated the Earth in a solar-powered aircraft. And the gentleman who's flying it right now, his last name is Picard, which is awesome because I love Star Trek. Picard right there. So got to meet all those people. Yeah, and he actually he circumnavigated the Earth in a balloon before. He was a co-pilot, so this isn't his first gig doing that, but it isn't the first one in a solar power aircraft. So that's pretty cool. I know Mark Zuckerberg during the Facebook conferences and things, like he was talking about his solar powered basically drones that are going to go up and deliver internet. So so it looks like solar power aircraft, I mean, they've been around for a little bit, but not heavily used, but it looks like maybe the drone business is probably going to be a good spot for it, because it'd be good for things to that are going to stay up a long time, not have to use a lot of fuel. So so I guess my question is, what do you think about solar power aircraft? And if you're not able to get into Moffett Field on Saturday night, are you at least going to like take a pair of binoculars out?
Well, I think solar powered aircraft are drones is absolutely probably the best place for solar powered aircraft. Drones, even low flying weather, kind of like the old weather balloons that we would send up in the upper atmosphere, but at least doing something that's unmanned. There's an incredible risk of having a manned aircraft that's up there for quite that long of time. The advantages, however, is, I mean, flying above the Earth, you have a great amount of time above the clouds. If you're flying high enough that you're above cloud cover, you have a great amount of time for potential charging. You don't always have a straight flight path, which is the other thing to consider. I mean, going from point A to point B in a standard jumbo jet, typically you take a small arc across the globe, and in this case, based upon where the sun is, you actually have to U-turn for a number of times to actually charge your batteries. So while you might sit there and have a nice trajectory of a circle where you're charging in half of that arc, for sustained flight or perpetual flight for a drone, if you're having to go from point A to point B, you'll actually have to make a number of U-turns. And actually, this morning when I tuned in at 10 a.m. Pacific, they were in the process, which is about the time the sun was coming up in Hawaii. They were actually in the process of doing a U-turn for about 45 minutes just to get the batteries up to 35%. So it took a while for them, even with the sun coming up at that point, for the batteries to recharge, for them to have they're flying back to Hawaii instead of forward to California. So I think, right now drones are probably the best place for it. I don't think I would want to be on one in a trans-Pacific or transatlantic flight. I think so. It's just a little too scary for me. And kudos to the big cojones of the pilots that are flying across the ocean with, no potential safe landing spots. That's just something that's a little too scary for me. Plane. There's no such thing as a plane landing. There's such thing as a plane, a controlled crash. Every landing is actually a crash. So I would hate to have a controlled landing on water.
I hope you weren't talking to the people next to you on the plane back from Hawaii like that.
No, I only had a 2-year-old. I had to chase up and down the aisles the entire flight.
Oh, I'm glad I wasn't on that plane. Yeah, I think I didn't even think about like having to recharge because the sun's not there. I mean, I guess that makes sense, obviously, but that's interesting. Of course, the higher you get up, maybe the more sunlight you get and that sort of thing.
And it also depends on the time of year and which arc you're taking. In the summer, in the northern hemisphere, gets less light. So you may be taking a southern hemisphere route where you can actually have take advantage of more daylight hours, and vice versa. The winter northern hemisphere. You mean what I know. When it's summer in the north, we get more sun. Yeah, my brain. I'm still on Hawaii time, so brain's still not working.
Yeah,
it's always summer there.
It's still on the beach.
Yeah, I'm still on the beach. I'm still recovering from horrible sunburn. I look like a man-o'-lantern. But given times of years, sustained flight, battery recharging, knowing are you going west to east to west? Are you following since the sun goes across the equator for us, or slightly above or slightly below based upon the axis of the Earth, and our rotation, where specifically do you have to be to maximize solar charging time or exposure to the wing surfaces? Yeah, something people much smarter than me are trying to figure out. Well, math is a fun topic for today. Today, beyond being Earth Day, is actually the birthday of one of the fathers of modern computing. His name was, and he's a very lesser known father of modern computing. No, he's not Steve Wozniak or Steve Jobs. This guy was Wilhelm Schickard. He was born April 22nd in 1592. That would be a long time ago. Almost 450 years ago, 434 years ago, something like that. And this guy, born during the Renaissance period, was one of the Renaissance men who actually had major implications to mathematics. Not only was he somebody who also studied astronomy, was a brilliant painter, did a number of things in terms of creating types of lettering and kind of code systems. He actually was one of the inventors of the first calculating clocks, or at least one of the first calculators, mechanical calculators during its time. And it's actually was found out that he, if you look at some of the drawings of calculators that he's created, many of them actually look like some of the old pull crank calculators that we saw in the later 19th century. mid 20th century. But also even impacts to something like the Enigma machine, which is World War II code machine that was used by the Nazis. And what it was is it had a number of levers that went from side to side, buttons down at the bottom, and you would actually put in your equation, whatever calculation, multiplication calculation you would want, and it would have a number of dials that would spin and provide a display of the answer for you. It was at the time, it was something that was kind of unheard of. People were still using abacus machines or trying to do things by hand at that point. But from the 1600s to the from the early 1600s to almost the early 1700s, nobody had come up with anything quite as accurate, and many of the other designs of things that had been built at that time oddly resembled the inventions of Schickard. He was a political theorist. He was a painter. He was skilled for creating a lot of other mechanical designs, kind of a la Leonardo da Vinci, though not quite as well known. And the Institute of Computer Science at the University of Tübingen is actually named their Computer Science Institute in his honor, being one of the modern, the fathers of modern computing. Andrew, how important has a calculator been to your life, and do you think that if he hadn't invented it, would we be able to have such an impact or be able to do as much today mathematically? Do you think somebody else would have come up with the idea?
Yeah, someone would have definitely come up with the idea. I mean, there's mathematicians out there, so someone's going to figure it out eventually. And I just want to say that this thing, the TI-89, and they have other ones now, but I don't think they're better than this. I mean, they might have more features or whatever, but when it comes down to just like a no-joke graphing calculator, the 89 is amazing. And if you're in school, probably don't need an 89. Like if you're in high school, you could probably get away with like a 82. I don't know if they make those anymore. 83. TI-83 is similar looking to this, and has a lot of features that'll get you through calculus. But for Calc 2 and above, man, this thing will save your life. Your professors might not allow it on exams, but when you're doing your homework and checking your work, I mean, it does integral calculus. So, I mean, yeah, calculators are awesome, and they help out a lot. And now it's gotten to the point where calculators are just little mini computers. So, ever since computing took off, so did calculators. Back in the day, they were just like the 4-function whatever. I remember when I was at private school at Miller School. FYI, happy birthday to Will Rosenthal, who was my buddy at Miller, and also Melanie Gladstone, whose also birthday it is today. But yeah, we found this old textbook from, I think it was like the 50s or something, and it said like future calculator, and it had this like big, like probably like something that guy drew in his book that you were talking about. Like it was just like a huge, like looked like a big piece of iron with like buttons on it or something like that. So it's kind of funny to think about, future technology back, 50 years ago. And, it's interesting what we think is going to be going on in 50 years. And, we make all these movies and pictures and stuff about it. But, 50 years from now, we're going to look back, or, our children are going to look back and laugh at us because, oh man, they thought, cell phones were going to be like this big. Oh my God. They're like, now you can just like put it on your shirt or something. Yeah. So yeah. Calculators are awesome. Text instruments is awesome.
Well, I remember the TI-82, I think is what we had in high school. And I remember actually using those in uploading programs to them, taking them home for the night and uploading, well, no, not just Drug Wars. But I I remember actually creating a number of programs for pre-calc and algebra 2 that would essentially you'd say put in X or put in Y or put in whatever values you needed for figuring out specific parts of the equation, and it would just calculate it for you, and it would give you all the values for all the parts of a quadratic, and it was great to see calculators become more than just multiplication, division, subtraction, but you can actually store macro programs in it or run particular types of functions, as well as things like matrices. Not many people think of, and if you're still studying algebra and algebra 2, getting into matrices is something where, wow, having a graphing calculator and a scientific calculator that can actually look at a lot of the higher level math functions in a matrix and automate a lot of it for you became something that I thought was just incredibly invaluable. So the fact that in 1623 and 1624 was when Schickard really came out with things. He actually even influenced Kepler in a lot of Kepler and Napier's designs back in the 1620s before he was wiped out by the bubonic plague in the 30 Years' War. So it's interesting that it took that long for something, and even to the early 1700s for his work to actually really be known and influence a lot of other designs. But thanks to this dude for having the idea and the forethought for putting it together, I would say now have modern calculators and even some of the earliest computers. I mean, calculators were designed to compute numbers, and that's all. Today's computers are all still numbers based. It's all making major computations and understanding binary and understanding long form calculations. So it's really fun to see how early a design like this has influenced so many modern technologies today.
Yeah, I just want to say my favorite game on my TI-82 was bowling. Had to be bowling. That was a lot of fun. And yeah, if you're taking linear algebra in college, definitely get a graphing calculator like Texas Instruments. They do, like Chris said, they do a lot of matrix functions and stuff like that. You can find the inverse like that matrix. So, that's pretty cool. For checking your work, you still got to learn how to do it, but it's good for checking your work and using it on a test if the teacher lets you, because then you can just spend time doing other things. So.
Yep. Oh, well, so that does it for, I think we hit science, technology, we hit engineering and math. It's been pretty quick for us to go through everything today. I'm pretty impressed. We're getting the hang of this thing.
Yep. And yeah, I think Chris is still on Hawaii time, and so we're gonna let him get back to his laying on his lanai or whatever he's about to go do.
Yeah. I wish I could land on the night. Flying back on Wednesday afternoon was quite painful. Although, like I said, it's Earth Day. CO2 emissions are up. That means brighter suns. Put plenty of sunscreen on. Don't do what I did and get a man-o'-lantern tan. I'm peeling as a result, and it's not fun. I look like a snake that's molting or something. So glad you don't have a high definition resolution on this camera.
Yeah.
As are you.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. So it's been great. Thanks for joining, Chris. And yeah, looking forward to next week. We'll have videos from this weekend. Hopefully, Chris is able to stop by and see the Solar Impulse landing in his backyard, and I'll be covering the NASA Space Apps Challenge, and the Greensboro Makers Fair. If you're in North Carolina near Greensboro, tomorrow in Burlington, I might have said Greensboro. Tomorrow in Burlington is a Makers Fair. It's at the Holy Hills Mall. It's from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. You should go check it out. There's gonna be like tons of vendors there, tons of exhibitors. They're gonna have indoor first-person viewing, quadcopter racing. They'll be racing around the mall. Actually, right across from the booth that I'll be at. So that'll be pretty cool. Go check it out. It's gonna be like a lot of people. A lot of it's like robotics things. People doing like woodwork, anything you can make. Basically, that's what this is about. So go check them out. It's free. And then also tomorrow, starting tonight though, is the NASA Space Apps Challenge. If you're not doing anything this weekend, it starts tonight, but it really doesn't start until tomorrow. Go to Google and type in NASA Space Apps Challenge. It's like a hackathon during the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. And if you're interested in like participating in any of these challenges, you can do that. You don't have to be a coder or anything like that. Like you can help like design things or just conceptualize things. If you're good thinking outside the box, they need people like you. So, and if you're in the Greensboro area, there's one in Greensboro. Like I said, they kick off tonight, but it really kicks off tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. So check out the NASA Space Apps Challenge. There's not one in every state, unfortunately, but you can also work remotely. Just go on the website and you'll see comments on the different challenges about people working remotely. So if it's just you but you got an internet connection, like there's people all around the world working on projects together this weekend. So check it out. Any last words, Chris?
No, just thank you all for tuning in. Again, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Click below. Also, subscribe to us on iTunes, and be sure to check out our website for continual stories and updates as we have them. So thanks for tuning in. We will catch you next week. Again, my name is Chris Michaels.
I'm Andrew, and that's Einstein, and we're out of here.
Later.